Bullet Club.
Hello and welcome to all of you worthless viewers! This message is being brought to you by the Bullet Punch Club, and each and every one of you are about to receive the opportunity, no, the privilege of witnessing the official takeover of the National Pokeball League. That's right, the big leagues of the draft community, the heavyweight division of competitive Pokemon, and I will be your host, Matty Omega, also known as the single greatest competitor that has ever graced the Pokemon community. And I am also the coach of the Los Angeles Reshirams. And now, please, if you'll do me the favor, sit back and watch me put on the most incredible competitive Pokemon spectacle that the world has ever seen. Why? Simply because I can. Now, without further ado, we must get this show started. So goodbye, mwah, and good night, bang! Hello and welcome to the resumption of the greatest competitive Pokemon spectacle on YouTube. That's right, I am your host, Matty Omega, proud member of the Bullet Punch Club, here with all of you worthless viewers for Week 2 of the National Pokeball League Season 7. Now, on the screen here, I am displaying both my team as well as my opponents, my little brother, Moxie Infernape, otherwise known as Blake. Go check out his channel if you want. Whatever you're going to see there will not be as impressive as what you'll see here, but regardless, we need to do our best to take a win this week and move on to 2-0. As you may have seen last week, we defeated Togavor and his Portland Timbers, and I plan on continuing to do the same this week, taking another win from the Baltimore Braviaries. So, anyway, if you want to look at both teams here, mine's right here, as I have mentioned to you in the past, all the members of my roster, whereas he has Necrozma as his first pick, Infernape with a Z move, Zygarde 10%, Togekiss Snorlax, Registeel Jolteon, Alomomola, Aselgor Rampardos, and Mega Venusaur as his last pick. So, as you could probably tell, Blake's team is rather fat, and I do not like fat teams. So I am going to have a good time dismantling my little brother's disgusting, putrid team. Now, he's got the Necrozma here, which, although I do not agree with it being a first-round pick, I do think that it actually is pretty threatening to my squad, because with either some type of Double Dance set, either Trick Room, Swords Dance Rock Polish, or Combine Rock Polish, and 2 coverage moves, it could pretty much dismantle a good amount of my team, which is pretty scary. So, Necrozma is definitely a threat here, while he's also got things like Infernape, which I do have, I guess, a reasonable check to in something like Mega Blastoise and Cresselia, but Infernape is always very threatening because it can just do so much, and with the Z move, you never really know what it's going to bring. So that is quite the threat. But other than that, no threats really jump out to me. It's just the fact that he's got a fat team. If he could play it really well and my team isn't prepared to break down a lot of his walls, it could be a long one. But unfortunately, he does have one Pokemon that happens to just tear almost my entire roster apart, and that is the Snorlax right here, ladies and gentlemen. Snorlax in Generation 7 received a magnificent buff in the new move, Recycle. I don't think Recycle's new to Gen 7, I know it's not, but it gets Recycle plus berries like a Guava or Figgy Berry, which heal 50% of your health, and combined with the Gluttony ability, it's really, really difficult to take Snorlax down, and it almost gives it reliable recovery, because there aren't many Pokemon that could reliably 2-hit KO Snorlax, and Blake's team is so fat that if I do bring in something that could 2-hit KO Snorlax, he could just switch out into one of his other Pokemon that probably can wall it in some way. So, with that being the case, the things that actually he'll leave Snorlax in for will not be able to 2-hit KO them, meaning that he could recycle whenever he knows he's going to go under 50%, or if ever he feels like he's in danger, he could just go for the recycle to make sure he's got his Figure or Guava or whatever kind of berry that heals 50% of his HP. He could just click recycle. So that is very scary, because he could also combine that with something like Curse, which with the moves either Return, Facade, plus something like Pursuit or Crunch, is just very, very good against my team, as it could even 1v1 something like a Calm Mind Cresselia, which you're going to see later, I actually decide to bring. So this is going to be an interesting matchup, because if he brings that Snorlax set, I really need to make sure I have ways to play around it, because in mock battles, other than that, my prep was very nice, but that one Pokemon was really just a lot for my team to handle, so I'm going to have to play around it well if I want to win this game. So without further ado, I will move on to the second part of this video, which is the team builder. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see here, I have decided to build my team for week 2 around the legend, the old man, one of my favorite memes. His name is Use Drampa, because he's already a meme. I don't need to come up with another name for him, and he's actually the only Pokemon that has the Dragon normal typing. So Drampa is a very interesting Pokemon that has come from Generation 7. It's really underrated in my opinion, because its stats defensively aren't terrible, and it's got an okay defensive typing. So combine that with some speed boosts that can be passed from Scolipede, and you can have a really, really difficult Pokemon to stop, because Drampa has access to the move Calm Mind as well as Roost, which is kind of funny because it does have wings, but it doesn't fly. At least from what we see, it doesn't. Can it even learn Fly? I'm curious. We're about to learn something new. It does get Fly. Very interesting. So this Pokemon can indeed fly, and it does get Roost. So because of that, Drampa's new ability, Berserk, allows it to gain special attack boosts every time it's knocked under 50% HP. So if I can pass speed boost to Drampa, that means I'm getting really fast Roosts, which allows me to set up Calm Minds, get really bulky because I'm a physically defensive Drampa, and just constantly Roost back up every time I near getting below 50%. So I'll go a little bit under 50%, go back up to nearly full, and constantly get bulkier with the Calm Minds, which will skyrocket my special attack, as well as my special defense, in case he has some special attackers like Jolteon, Togekiss, that he otherwise would normally be able to hit me decently hard with. So, with that, and these two coverage moves, I hit his whole team for really solid damage. I initially had Flamethrower here in the Focus Blast slot, but I realized there were a couple times when people would send in Registeel on my Drampa when I was at like +2 or +3 special attack, and Flamethrower wouldn't be able to kill it, and it would get off a Toxic on me. So I figured just putting Focus Blast on it would help for two reasons. Number one, it could just clean Oko or Registeel, which would allow me to avoid the Toxic, which could really help Drampa sweep. And then number two, it could also do a lot of damage to that Snorlax, which, like I said before, is probably the biggest threat. And even though Drampa has really high special attack, I'm not invested, so like +4, +5, still can't one-hit KO something like Snorlax. So if it keeps recycling with the Figgy Berry, then that could potentially beat me 1v1, I believe. Well, not really, but it could just definitely get in the way, and you're going to see in the game later why that could be so. So because of that, I definitely wanted to run Focus Blast, because at like +3 or +4, I'm pretty sure it's like I think +4, it's like a guaranteed Oko. So that is very nice, because that could allow Drampa to just completely bulldoze through his team. I picked Lumberry here. I picked Lumberry here because a lot of people were just spamming Sludge Bomb with their Venusaur until they got a Poison, or going into something like Registeel to Toxic. So it could allow me to get one more Calm Mind up, or it could allow me to miss a Focus Blast and then still knock out the Registeel if I go with a Lumberry. I was still considering leftovers. I was considering Choppleberry, as well as even Chalonberry for something like Zygarde, 50%, but people weren't really bringing that in mocks. People were bringing Infernape a lot more often, so I was really considering the Choppleberry, because that is something that could stop my sweep, like a Bandit or Life Orb. Physical Infernape could do a lot of damage with Mach Punch, like a little over half, but if I could stay healthy, then even with a Lumberry, I could live a Mach Punch and knock out the Infernape in return. So I decided to go with the Lumberry because in my mocks, it was the most relevant item out of all of them, so I was really debating mostly between Lum, Leftovers, and Chople. So, with that being said, we'll move on to our next Pokemon, which is our used Dustox, our Scolipede. Now, Scolipede really has a decent matchup here at what it does, because it could really substitute and set up spikes on a lot of his team, as well as protect and get speed boosts to be able to baton pass speed into some of my other threats, like potentially Drampod, which is the main one that I would like to pass into, or even things like Hoopa potentially, because Hoopa just has a really nice offensive matchup against Blake's team. So that is pretty much all there is to this Scolipede set. We gave it the Black Sludge item for a little bit of extra passive recovery, and we have just enough speed for an Infernape, as well as just enough bulk, just the rest invested into bulk. We have a little extra in special defense, just to take hits from something like a Jolteon a little bit better potentially. So then next we have my used Malamar, my Hoopa Unbound. Now this thing has been a monster in mock battles. With Dark Pulse, Thunderbolt, Psychic, and Focus Blast, it has absolutely perfect coverage against my opponent's team, and it outspeeds and speed ties with a lot of his team. It doesn't speed tie with a lot, but it outspeeds a good amount of his team, and then speed ties with the Togekiss, which is kind of nice because if he doesn't run fully max speed, then we could outspeed and hit quite hard with a Thunderbolt or a Psychic. And even if he does run max speed, we can win a speed tie, which, with my luck, is probably going to be unlikely, but it is possible. So this thing definitely does have a good offensive matchup against Blake's team. It is not easy to switch into, and it can come in on a lot of his slow and bulky Pokemon and really wreak havoc just by clicking buttons for the most part. So we gave it the Life Orb item because it really gives us that extra power that we need in this matchup, especially for the Togekiss to be able to kill most variants with a Thunderbolt after Stealth Rocks. So then next up, we have use Archeops, because Archeops is somewhat of a meme as well. I have a Choice Scarf set here because this outspeeds the Infernape, which could easily be Choice Scarfed on his team. And it actually just has good coverage against him. He doesn't have a lot of good rock resists, and most of his rock resists get hit pretty hard by Earthquake. So I have Stone Edge, Earthquake, U-Turn, and Switcheroo. Switcheroo could be really important if that Snorlax does get out of hand with the Curse Recycle set. And unfortunately, the Defeatist ability is going to be annoying because I don't have hazard removal here, but I do have some measures to prevent hazards being stacked against me. I mean, Stealth Rocks are the only thing that hit Archeops, but still, for the rest of my team, it would be nice to not have so many hazards stacked against the team. But Blake, his only spike user is a Selgor, so if he doesn't bring a Selgor, then I know that there's no chance for him to stack any spikes against me. So Archeops is pretty useful in that regard. As next, we have a very important member of the team. We have used Colossoil. Colossoil is a creative Pokemon. I mentioned that in my Week 1 builder. As this thing is very specially defensive, designed to take on even a modest Life Orb Jolteon cannot 2-hit KO me after leftovers with a Life Orb Signal Beam. So, and if he does bring Jolteon, Signal Beam is quite likely because also there is Hoopa, which that hits super effectively 4 times. So the Signal Beam will, like I said, be pretty likely on the Jolteon, which allows my Crocodile to still switch into it. And I have Stealth Rock, Taunt, which Taunt could be really nice in case he has like a slow Togekiss, which means I could prevent it from defogging, which would be nice. Or if, he brings in something like a Registeel and tries to set up rocks, maybe he Shook a Berry, or he just wants to get up his rocks knowing he could live in Earthquake, I can Taunt it and prevent that, which is, like I said, one of my ways to prevent hazard stacking. So that could be kind of nice. And I have, obviously, Earthquake for nice solid stab damage, and the Toxic, which I added last minute. It could be nice for Togekiss, but it's mainly for that Snorlax because if it runs that Curse set, it doesn't necessarily have to be Rest. It could just run the Recycle set, which is the most threatening, and if it runs the Recycle set, it almost has to be Gluttony. It would be kind of crazy if he ran Immunity with that set, because then he's really risking getting below 25% every time to heal up with the Figgy Berry. So because of that, the Toxic rather, is very nice, because even if he does have Facade, it puts him on a timer. One way or another, it puts him on a timer and allows me to most likely beat it. So definitely a smart bring. It was actually called by my good buddy Gypsy King, running the Toxic on my Crocodile here, because that Snorlax is just a massive threat. So this Crocodile definitely has a pretty nice matchup at what it does here. And then finally, we have one of our main win conditions other than Drampod. We have use Unknown, the shiny Cresselia here, very, very pretty Pokemon. With the leftovers, we have most investment in physical defense. We put 404 404 HP here just because we may be able to pass a substitute, potentially with my Scolipede, which would allow me to have enough HP to avoid a seismic toss, breaking it from something like a Registeel, which could be kind of useful. And other than that, I just have max defense to really give me more defense, because once I start boosting on the special side, Cresselia will just be so disgustingly bulky there that not having so much HP investment isn't going to matter. So I'm actually a Rest Talk variant because he could very well have Toxic on things to limit me, and I really don't need any other move because he doesn't have a Dark type. So if I get up to, you know, +4, +5, +6, Psychic is going to be going through his team quite nicely. So the speed is here to creep a max speed Togekiss, because Togekiss may want to speed time my Hoopa, which could be really nice for me, and it was working out really well in my mock battles. So with this team, I definitely feel pretty comfortable going into this match. Like I said, with this mean team, it's never a good matchup for me, but I do think with this squad that I prepared here, I should have a pretty good chance to beat my little brother in this match. So without further ado, I will welcome you to the second battle of the greatest competitor to ever grace the Pokemon community. I'll meet you there. Alright, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, as we, Blake's Big Brother, if you're a little confused by that name, just spell out the initials, are going up against Moxie Infernape and his Baltimore Braviaries. Now, he has brought a little bit of a strange team. Most people did bring the Togekiss, the Snorlax, the Venusaur, and the Registeel, but not many people brought the Rampardos and the Zygarde especially, so those caught me off guard just a little bit. But regardless, they were probably even less threatening than some of the other Pokemon that he could have brought, like Necrozma or Infernape, for example. So without further ado, Crocodile is my dedicated lead here, so we'll get right into this battle as Used Colossal takes the field against his hipster Togekiss, as I'm just going to go right for my Stealth Rocks here, as he goes for a Signal Beam right off the bat. Not a bad play on his part by any means, but of course, I believe Signal Beam's a 20% chance to confuse, which means 40% with Serene Grace, so not in his favor, but obviously it's a pretty high chance, so kind of unfortunate to get that confusion there, but thankfully confusion was nerfed to attacking yourself only 33% of the time instead of 50% of the time in Gen 7. So I'm just going to go right for my Stealth Rocks here just to see if I'm faster and to see if he has Defog. So I do get up my rocks right here, as now I'm going to go right for the Toxic here in case he goes for the Defog, because if he does Defog, then I get a Toxic on the Togekiss, which is nice, allowing me to just kind of keep setting up rocks, or I could switch out and maybe set up rocks later, making it harder for him to defog because he's constantly going to be whittled down by the Toxic. So he goes into his Registeel, and I go for the Toxic, which doesn't affect it, obviously, but this is okay because I could taunt this Registeel, putting me in a great position. It's going to be tough for him to get up rocks because this Crocodile just beats it 1v1, meaning he would have to switch out and take good damage from something with Earthquake, or go into Togekiss, which could either be Toxic, or I could just switch out into something else to take that on. So I'm in a pretty good spot here, unless I get confused, and what do you know, ladies and gentlemen, I go for the taunt, but I hit myself in confusion, and he gets his Stealth Rocks up. So very, very unfortunate, because now I have no way to remove these hazards, and I was not able to taunt the Registeel, which would allow me to put, excuse me, which would have allowed me to put pressure on his team, because he would have been taunted, and he would just be forced to kind of switch out like he did right now into something else, and he wouldn't have these rocks up, which are very crucial. So now I'm going to switch out into my Hoopa right here, as he Mega Evolves, and he goes right for the Leech Seed on my Used Malamar. So that's an interesting set on this Venusaur. I can go right into my Scolipede here, knowing that he probably will not stay in here. He's probably going to go into his Registeel, or even Snorlax, both things that Scolipede can set up speed boosts on or spikes on. I do have to be a little more careful with the Snorlax, but Registeel seemed like the more likely play, as I do get into Scolipede here, and even if he did stay in with Venusaur there, which would have been kind of crazy, Scolipede still wouldn't have been a bad play, because he had no move to one-hit KO me or anything like that, and I could still protect up and take a hit or so. So I'm into my Scolipede, as now I can just go right for these spikes. There's not much he could do to me, as he goes right for the Iron Head. And that Iron Head tells me that he could probably break my sub with how much it did. But I'm still going to go for a sub here anyway, just to Actually, I do go for my second layer of spikes. Now here, I'm going to go for the sub. As it turns out, he goes right for a synthesis here. And now this allows me to be behind a sub at +3 speed, which is really nice. Because at +4 speed, I could outspeed everything on his team, including the Zygarde, unless it's Scarfed. But I think I'll still be able to outspeed like a Scarfed Togekiss or something like that. So that is really, really nice. Because that means Drampa could potentially put in a ton of work right now. So I'm at +3 speed, and I can protect here, getting up to +4. So I'm going to protect, as I have 2 layers of spikes up, as well as my Stealth Rocks. And now I know if he goes for another knockoff, Drampa will be able to take that knockoff, which is very nice. And if he has HP Fire, I'll be able to take that as well. So I do take the knockoff, as now I go right for the Calm Mind. As he does knock me off again, and unfortunately I don't have Substitute to go for on my Drampa, as he goes for the Leech Seed, which I expected, and he misses, unfortunately. But as you're going to see, it doesn't end up mattering a ton, because I was going to 2-hit KO this Venusaur, even if he did have the Leech Seed up. And now, and honestly, even if he kept his Venusaur in after he got a first Leech Seed in to try to like synthesis up a little bit, I set up more with Drampa, and I'm in an even better spot to win, because his Venusaur cannot even touch me. So, here he goes right into his Snorlax, as I go for another Calm Mind here, as he goes right for the return, and he crits me. Now that damage tells me that he's a pretty offensive Snorlax, like no Choice Band or anything like that, but probably Adamant Nature, and that means that he probably would have done around high 30s to 40%, which is definitely really unfortunate, because I have Roost on this set, so I could still Roost against this thing and not really lose a lot of HP, because if he's doing high 30s plus Leech Seed, that means he's doing around 50% each turn, meaning that you know, I can keep getting boosts even when I'm down around, what's it called, you know, 30% or so. I can keep getting boosts and eventually just OHKO this Snorlax. Now, here I just go right for the Roost, knowing that if he returns me again and, you know, the Leech Seed happens, I still will not go down to it and I'll get another boost, but he actually ends up critting me 2 times in a row, which is just ridiculous, because had he not gotten either of those crits, I would have had like a 35 or so percent Drampa left. I would have been able to OHKO this Snorlax, because I got up to +4 with the Berserk and everything. And I would have been able to OHKO the Snorlax with a Focus Blast, which means that the only way he would have been able to stop me is potentially by picking me off with Zygarde, but it depends on how much HP I was at and what set he is, because I may be able to live in Extreme Speed, because I am a max, almost a max defense Drampa. So that there was super unfortunate, because I probably wouldn't have been able to just straight sweep through his team, but I definitely would have been able to knock out the Snorlax and then at least force him to go into Zygarde, which I could either play around by going into my Cresselia on an Extreme Speed, or I could just calc and see how likely it is for him to take me out with an Extreme Speed, and I could stay in and possibly get another kill. And if I got another kill there and didn't go down to his Extreme Speed, then Drampa just basically swept the rest of his team and got a 6-0 for me. So that was really, really unfortunate there, as he already got lucky with the Stealth Rocks being on the field earlier on, because they should not have been on the field, and those happened to wear down my Scolipede a little bit, they wore down my Drampa a little bit, and all that percentage really mattered, because, for example, if I had that extra percentage from the Stealth Rock damage, then I would have been able to knock out the Snorlax and definitely have been out of range of Zygarde's Extreme Speed. So here I go into my Crocodile, as I go right for the Toxic on his Snorlax. He just goes right for the return, and that does a good amount, so I know that he definitely has a good amount of offensive investment. But here I can just go right into my Scolipede, knowing that I can live a return from here, but he actually goes for counter, which was interesting. I wasn't expecting that. As here I can just go for his sub, in case he wanted to go for like a rest or he had anything like that. But regardless, it doesn't matter. I could just go for a spike here on the next turn. Or I could actually protect him to whittle him a little bit more, and then go for a spike, as he will go down to Toxic here, which is nice to at least have one more layer of hazards here, because if he does want to defog with his Togekiss, then at least he's removing the rocks on my side as well. And if he doesn't have defog, which I don't think he could really squeeze here, then I'm just really wearing him down. So he goes into his Zygarde, as I go into my Archeops. Now I just go right for the U-turn here and do quite a bit of damage, as I go into my Crocodile here to get an Intimidate, as I don't want to just send in my Cresselia right away, as that does quite a bit, and he turns out to be Life Orb Zydog. So here I go right into my Cresselia, because I know I can eat that up very easily, and he'll be at 7%. But now here he whips out a pretty cool tech as he goes for the Pain Split. Now this makes things a lot more tricky because had he not had that, this Cresselia just won right there because he would have had to attack again and he would have gone down to the Life Orb recoil as I would have been at +1 with a Calm Mind, and literally his Togekiss could get to +6. Oh, well, alright, well, basically his Togekiss turns out to be a Nasty Plot set, but he's a bulky Nasty Plot set, and with that set he can get up to +6, and his Signal Beams will not even 2-hit KO me at +3 special defense. So we need to try to boost up as fast as he can and hope that I don't get boosted with Sleep Talk, and I outspeed for sure so he can't flinch me down with anything like Air Slash or anything like that. So I would have been in a phenomenal position had he had to attack there, and I would have had a pretty healthy +2 Cresselia with the Calm Minds. But here he goes for the Crunch, and that's kind of annoying here because that means he can go for defense drops, which would really just kind of take the wind out of my sails here because Cresselia still should win this match. But we'll see. As here he goes for another Pain Split as I go for a Calm Mind and I get the Psychic. So here I'm going to go for another Sleep Talk, as unfortunately right there he gets the defense drop, and that is going to be really annoying because I'm kind of forced to go for another Rest here, and that means that now his Crunch can potentially 3-hit KO me. So I go right for the Rest here, and Crunch plus Pain Split will be able to 3-hit KO me here, which is really unfortunate. It's really risky for me to stay in and just hope that I get like double Psychics here to knock this thing out, because I just really need to rely on Sleep Talk rolls. So I probably have a better chance at sending in my Cresselia at another time, like for example getting this Intimidate drop on the Zygarde here, predicting him to go for the Pain Split right there. So here I go back into my Cresselia as he goes for the 1,000 Arrows again, as now I can go for just Sleep Talk as he goes for the Pain Split, and that does a lot to me, but I should be okay because his crunches are going to be doing like 15%. So here he goes into his Togekiss, and I don't know what his Togekiss set is, so I'm hoping that it's not Nasty Plot here, and I'm hoping I can get a Calm Mind here, but no, I get 2 rests in a row, which is really, really unfortunate, as now I'm forced to go for the rest again, as he does reveal the Nasty Plot here, and now I can't really stay in because I don't have any Calm Mind boost, so it is going to be hard for me to boost as fast as this Togekiss can. So here I need to go sack my Crocodile and bring in my Archeops, and I could go for the U-turn here and predict his Registeel to come in, but I'm kind of forced to go for Stone Edge here. It's not a terrible play on my part because he'll be taking a lot of damage by going to Registeel, and then I can go into my Cresselia, but he makes a good double and goes into Zygarde, predicting me to go to Cresselia there. So good play on his part, but just really unfortunate because all of that luck he got previously really stopped my Cresselia from having a pretty easy sweep throughout the rest of his team, and now Crunch could 2-hit KO me there after the Pain Split, as now there's not much I could do at this point. I'm just going to have to pretty much sack my Hoopa off here, hope that he'll sack his Zygarde to my Archeops here, but, well, I mean, Earthquake can't even kill it at this point, so, I just had to, like, hope for a miracle. There's nothing really that I could do to win at that point, so really unfortunate game. You may see some stuff in the chat here, me getting angry, because it was ridiculous. Like, my Drampa, even if it didn't sweep, would have put in a lot of work. I never should have had rocks on my side of the field, which would have allowed my Archeops to just put in so much work, because as you can see here, it totally kind of wrecked the rest of his team, and the only thing stopping it was the Stealth Rocks, wearing it down every time it came in, as well as my Cresselia and Drampa having to take unnecessary damage by the Stealth Rocks, and then also both of them getting hacked ridiculously, having basically Blake pretty much had, I mean, I didn't go in and calc it to see what his percent chance to win this was without hacks, but basically for all that hacks to happen, he probably had like less than a 1% chance to win this game, but alas, that's what happens when you are the single greatest competitor of all time at Pokemon. There's no way to beat you. There's really no way to beat you fair and square. Either if you have a terrible matchup or you just get hacked to death. But I chose to draft this team. I knew I was going to have bad matchups, but I really wanted to test my skill to just show that it doesn't matter what kind of team I have, because I could beat anybody at any time. But unfortunately, my little brother was able to get a victory over me due to basically purely hacks. So, what can you do? I did try. I did put a good amount of effort in, but unfortunately, the wrong player won in this match. But Blake, I have to say, his prep was pretty good, and he did play well. I'm not trying to take away from him in that regard. He is a really up-and-coming player who has a lot of potential. But unfortunately, I just don't think that he should have won this game by any stretch of the imagination. So, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. We have moved down to 1-1 with a -2 differential because we had +2 when we should have probably beaten Togue by a little more had I not made a misplay earlier on in the game. But we moved down to -2. And now next week we're going up against Monotui, which normally I'd be really excited for because Mono is one of the people I wanted to play the most in the format that I haven't played. But just a warning is that my matchup against Mono is one of those where it's just like he's more than good enough to the point where it could be unwinnable. Like, it is so ridiculously bad, and obviously that's on me for drafting a meme team, but like I said, I wanted to focus on having fun and proving that I could win with any type of team this season, so obviously that's on me, but I'm just saying I've been looking at that matchup and it's going to be almost impossible to win unless he messes up or I get like ridiculously lucky with hacks, I guess. So we'll see. You know, we got to just take things one step at a time, see what happens, but that's why this win, or this loss rather, could really, really bite us, because if we can't beat Mono, then we drop to a 1-2 hole, which would definitely be a first for me in any league, because I've never had a negative record before. So, yeah, that is about it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed, you worthless, meaningless viewers. That was Matty Omega representing the Bullock Punch Club. Unfortunately, not the best this time. But, alas, we will bounce back like only we can, because just like I've mentioned previously, I am the single greatest competitor to ever touch this game. So without a doubt, we will be back. We will get back on the winning track, and we will lead the Bullock Club to, or the Bullock Punch Club to the promised land. So without further ado, goodbye, mwah, and good night, bang!